everyone, and welcome to Shark Day 2020 here at Exeter Marine, where we'll be raising awareness for shark species and showcasing some of the amazing shark research being conducted right here at the University of Exeter. So joining me right now is Veronica Zuccolo. Veronica, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you very much. How are you?
Very well, thanks. It's great to have you on. How have you been coping during this crazy lockdown then? Have you been doing okay?
Yeah, I've been great. I've been finishing my master's in conservation and biodiversity, but my plan was to go to Brazil to collect samples for my shark research. And of course, I haven't been able to go back to Brazil. So I hired someone in Brazil to collect the samples for me, a friend, and then she'll be sending everything to me. So it has really it's a very strange moment to be doing shark research.
Yeah, it's all a little bit hectic, isn't it? And trying to manage things via a computer is just a complete different change. Like, I'm not used to that at all. So doing this kind of stuff is a little bit new, but quite exciting as well.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, when did you first realize you wanted to pursue research into sharks and rays?
So I remember being a child and I was in Monterey Aquarium. And I remember they had like this pool that you could touch the rays. And I remember at that moment, I was about 11. It's like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And of course, life happened and I didn't manage to do that. And then when I was about 35, I had a moment I was like, I need to follow my dream. So here I am.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and sometimes some people just kind of fall into it. And there's other times where people have that sort of moment where they think, oh, I'd love to do this. I'd love to do this as a career.
Yeah, for me, it has always been like the thing that like made me the most excited. Mm-hmm. But like my family was like, you are never going to make any money being a marine biologist and this. And I was like, it's not about money. It's about like following my dream and like helping these species that need so much help. Mm-hmm. And like so much awareness, so much research into them. Like we know so little about sharks and rays.
Mm-hmm.
Like
exactly. I think it's really important as well to kind of show people that there is shark research going on here, and it's definitely accessible for anyone who particularly wants to do it, for sure. What was it that made you want to research here at the University of Exeter? What kind of drew you towards Exeter as an institute?
So I met when in 2017 I was in South Africa with a girl that had just finished her undergrad here in Exeter in Cornwall, and she was talking about it, and I was like, I think that's the university I need to go. So then I applied for the master's, got accepted, came here, and I was like, this university is completely different from any other university I've ever been to. This is my third university in UK, and I never felt more valued than I felt here. Mm-hmm. And I felt really supported as an international student. I'm Brazilian. So as an international student, it has been very welcoming, and I felt welcomed in other places, but it was different. It was like you being an international student that adds so much value rather than you pay additional fees, you know? So it's just like, I just felt like I had like so much knowledge and so much to contribute to the international community that it wasn't a bad thing, me being an international student. It was a very, very positive thing. And then I connected with Dr. Andrew Griffiths in about end of 2018, about November 2018, when I gave this presentation on shark consumption in Brazil. And he was like, oh, I've done some shark research around this. So we kind of like kept in touch a little bit. And then I had to interrupt my studies for like health reasons. And in February this year, Exeter Marine launched the grant to do shark and to do research in the marine environment. I was like, oh my God, what can I do? This is my opportunity, like something I've always wanted to do. And now, like, it's you say that it's not that easy to do research and like to start from scratch. Like I'm completely starting, like everything I've done in my past is like completely different. So, and then Dr. Griffiths and we put this application together in 2 days, submitted, and we got the grant. So it's like literally my dream coming true to do something that has always been so close to my heart, which is like doing research with sharks and helping Brazil along the way without needing to be there. So yeah, it's quite an exciting opportunity.
Yeah, being able to pair those kind of two of yours is must be absolutely amazing and make you proud as well at the same time.
Yeah,
definitely. So in terms of your research then, can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing? I know you're fairly early on in your research, but could you give us sort of a little bit of an insight into what it is that you're going to be researching?
Yeah, so in Brazil, people consume sharks, but it's under a term called cação. So people don't realize that cação is actually sharks. They think it's a species of fish. So for that reason, like they've done loads of studies showing that people don't really realize that they are eating sharks. When they are interviewed, there is a lot of like mislabeling, and it's quite I'm not going to say dodgy, but there is something there that is like really, there is a proper effort made to hide that they are sharks.
Contentious, I think it's quite a contentious thing.
Yeah,
I agree.
And it's very ingrained, and there is a lot of like things involved, like so Brazilians have been eating sharks forever, and we have, like, you see the size of like Brazil coastline is massive, but Brazil is not a country that values biodiversity, as you know, from like what is happening to the Amazon and other parts of Brazil. So like we already know that they are not very good at conservation there. And I always wondered, like, what really happens? What species of sharks are being commercialized? Like, are they actually taking into consideration size, or are they just like fishing whatever? And it has been very interesting doing the collection now during COVID, because the fishermen haven't really been out. So they've been selling pre-frozen samples. And I'm pretty sure that it has really changed the kind of species that they've been fishing. So apparently there are loads of international vessels that fish in Brazilian waters. They export those back to the country, so Portugal, Spain, and then we import them back to be sold in the Brazilian market. So like there is a lot of like bureaucracy, politics involved. And the thing is, there is like now for me, like to import the samples back, they talk a lot about sites, but I'm really interested to see, like, are they really like looking after those sharks? Are they really protecting the sharks, especially the ones that are very endangered? And then, so it just has been like quite a natural thing for me to study that. Sharks have been like my passion for like as long as I know. And I just wanted to do something related to Brazil and like help Latin America. And then when we were putting the project together, Andrew Griffiths, he had a connection with someone from FAO that was collecting ceviche shark samples from Peru. And apparently the most traditional ceviche is made of with sharks. So we just thought, what a cool way to like really investigate shark consumption in Brazil. And there are some rays that I've been able to sample as well. So that will be very, very interesting to see what kind of species are being commercialized, where they are coming from. Were they frozen? Were they fresh samples? And then my dream would be to be able to do a second set of collection post-COVID, when everything goes back to normal, so we can compare and see what has changed.
Yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Yes, a great answer.
Sorry, I'm quite chatty.
No, it's really interesting, and it's quite interesting as well because the sale of sharks under different names is something that we experience here in Cornwall too.
Yeah, I know, rock salmon.
Exactly. So and then being able to compare the differences during COVID and after COVID will be very, very interesting to
yes
see, definitely.
Yeah.
In your research, you're going to be using DNA barcoding. So for those people at home who maybe haven't heard of that term before, could you explain to us what DNA barcoding is?
So basically, you get a sample of the fish, and we don't know what species that fish is. We saw loads of images of the body of the fish, of the shark, but without the fins and without the heads, most of the time is very, very difficult to identify. So what we do is we go and we collect a tiny little piece of flesh, of muscle, and then we do this technique that basically you are going to explore all the DNA, so all your biology of the meat, and then you can pinpoint exactly what kind of species that piece of flesh belongs to.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of DNA barcoding, then how important do you think DNA barcoding will be for shark conservation in and around Latin America? Do you think that's going to be a tool that will significantly help conservation in that area?
I think DNA barcoding is so crucial because it allows us to get exactly the species that we are talking about. More than there are so many errors with IDing, and I think like in terms of like shark trading and illegal shark trading especially, like you can do barcoding on frozen products, you can do barcoding on dog food products that contain sharks, and like you can expand the use of barcoding to cosmetics, so it's a very, very valuable tool. It's just expensive, but it's a very valuable tool, and I find DNA barcoding absolutely crucial for conservation.
So you mentioned there it's quite expensive. Do you know what kind of price range it is to do DNA barcoding?
So the main problem with DNA barcoding is the reagent that you need to preserve the sample. And I just got some now, and it was about £500 for a bottle of like 200 mLs.
It's a lot of money. A lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And when you think about Brazil is not a nation that invests a lot in research. And when they invest in research, that they do, but when they do, it doesn't tend to be a lot of money. So DNA barcoding can be a bit of inaccessible for them.
So in terms of the samples then, are the samples being sent to you from Brazil, or is the reagent going to Brazil? What's going on there?
So I bought the reagents and all the vials, everything in Brazil. So I ordered everything from a company there, and then it's been collected in the coast of São Paulo. My parents had already collected some like in the city of São Paulo, because we wanted to have like this blend of like city and coastal, and it's currently being stored in my friend's freezer, and then she'll ship as soon as the labs reopen, so we can like properly store them until I'm able to go to the lab and research and analyze.
So you mentioned there getting samples from the coast and samples from cities. Do you think what kind of differences might you expect between the coast and cities, for example? Do you think there will be differences?
Yeah, I think there will be difference. I think especially if you think about I imagine that in the coastal area you would have a more varied range of species and the tendency that they would be fresh. While in the city, I kind of expect that the majority are pre-frozen species. Some of them are being sold as fresh. So it's quite interesting to see like what is really being, how it's being marketed, how it's being commercialized. And yeah, but I think COVID is going to have a really big impact as well.
I mean, that's going to be an interesting discussion point in right, definitely. In terms of the consumption of sharks and rays, how is that viewed in Latin America? Is it very widespread? Is it consumed by a lot of people? Is it fairly normal to eat shark in those areas?
It's very normal. Yeah, it's seen as these white fish, cheap white fish, and is very easily available. Some people say, oh, cação. Cação is a small shark. But the majority of people think it's just like a white fish. So in Brazil, it's eaten quite widely. We don't have a lot of trade of fins. The fins, Brazil is a big hub in South America of exportation of shark parts. And so, as I said before, in Peru, like the traditional ceviche is made with sharks.
Do you think then, if people in Brazil and Peru knew that they were eating shark products, in terms of if the labeling was clearer, do you think they would be less likely to consume it, or do you not think it would make a difference?
I think there would need to be a quite widespread educational program, because like some papers have been published, people have been interviewed, and some people are aware, but it has to be, it's more about, I think we have to work on the bad image that sharks have. We have to work on what the consequences of eating sharks are, like the mercury and like all the heavy metals accumulation in your body. I think there are like so many different aspects that need to be targeted. And it would need to be like quite a widespread educational I think it would need to be quite a widespread educational like approach, campaign. Yeah, because like right now, just to give you an example, like with coronavirus, half of the country is wearing masks, half of the country is not wearing masks. And like, there is just so much, Brazil is so big, and there are so many like different views of everything, like, and we just need something like properly structured, a very good guidance, very robust, like it needs to be clear. Like we have to target from like the fishermen to all the way to like the richest people in Brazil. So like it needs to be very well planned. But I think like with tiny little things we can start to make a difference. But
it seems really interesting as well from a socio-economic perspective too, because obviously these fishermen are depending on sharks for their livelihood. So there's a lot of different, like you say, you have to approach it from a number of different angles, don't you?
Yeah, and they've been fishing sharks for their whole lives, and the shark fishery has expanded so much, I guess, to feed the Asian markets with the fins, that they now, as soon as they fish the shark, they freeze them immediately. So there are so many different angles, and we've seen in other countries how, like, if you speak to the fishermen, if you like explain everything, if you train them, if you find a different alternative for income for them. So one of the best ways to transition fishermen from fishing sharks is to go into ecotourism and like getting money from taking people to swim with sharks. You know, so there are like so many amazing alternatives. It's just having the money, the time, and like the right people to do it.
Do you think there's a market there then in those countries for an increase in ecotourism operations and providing that shift between fishing to watching or swimming with?
Yes, of course. I think like everywhere there is that market. We have quite a good market like for scuba diving, and there are islands in Brazil that you can go and you can snorkel with scuba. There are loads of activities for you to see, but most people stay far, far away from sharks. So I think the first level would need to be raising shark awareness, understanding that sharks are completely different from what they've been portrayed to be. And so there are some steps that we would need to, because at the moment, if you put someone running this ecotourism there, like they won't have anyone, they'll have me, you know, like they'll have like 3 people going. So there needs to be like an awakening, I guess, of.
I suppose, through campaigns and things, and that would be the push towards that kind of stuff. A little broad question here for you. What does the future look like for shark and ray conservation across Latin America? Very broad question there for you, but what are your opinions on that? What do you think it's going to look like in the future?
I really worry about this because the fisheries around there are very poorly regulated. And like I said before, Brazil doesn't tend to look after its biodiversity, and it's more about having a healthy, strong economy than like saving our natural resources. So I think, unfortunately, it's not a very good outlook for any marine animals. And sharks are kind of like, because we had loads of shark attacks in Brazil, like a few decades ago. So people are so scared that they see sharks as a negative thing, as the enemy, as the like this thing that shouldn't exist. So I think there might be a bit more awareness for rays, because rays are not seen as dangerous. And I know there have been loads of studies, loads of campaigns done with them, like conservation efforts, but I don't see a lot done with sharks.
So a little bit of hope for the future, but we've got to do some work, definitely.
We need to do a lot of work, yes. But like with everywhere else, there is always hope. It's just like being timely with your intervention and just like using the right tools to make a difference.
Well, your research sounds absolutely amazing. I can't wait for you to continue doing it and show us all what you find. It sounds unbelievable. To finish up, we've got a couple of questions from some Floridian school children. So I'm here in Florida at the moment, and I've asked around, and I've got a few questions for you from some Florida school kids. So the first one is from Tommy, who's 13. He goes to Bridgewater Middle School in Florida. And he asks, what are some of the most endangered species of sharks? So can you think of any of the kind of most endangered species in and around Brazil and Peru? Which species are particularly struggling over there?
So if you think about the species that move around a lot, those are the species that are going to be most threatened. So of course the hammerheads, like all the different species of hammerheads, are very threatened. And the one that is most threatened is the oceanic whitetips, because they do swim around the vast ocean looking for food. So they are caught by fishermen's gear and as mostly as bycatch, but also being fished.
So for those who don't know at home, would you be able to explain what bycatch is?
So bycatch is when an animal is caught in the fishing line or fishing gear, and it wasn't the animal that was being targeted. So like what happens mainly in tuna fisheries, loads of animals, turtles, dolphins, sharks, they get caught. And these animals that weren't the primary animal that they were targeting, those are considered bycatch. So bycatch is quite a serious problem for loads of sharks, and blue sharks also struggle a lot with bycatch. Mm-hmm. And quite a few of the shark species that I'm already getting from Brazil, we think that they are blue sharks. So
yeah. And then I've got another question here from William, who's 5 years old. He's entering kindergarten at Independence Elementary School here in Florida. And he asks, what is your favorite shark and why?
So that's a tricky question because I kind of have two species. So the first one is the black-tip reef sharks. And I've loved them since I was like a kid, because they are just so beautiful. They look like painting. They look like someone literally turned them upside down, dipped them in paint. Like, they are just perfect. But my favorite shark to swim with have been the oceanic white tips. And I had the experience of swimming like with, I think there were five to seven oceanic white tips around me. I had seen some pilot whales, and oceanic white tips are very related, like they swim a lot with pilot whales. And I got in the water and I was like, oh my God, they are just so majestic, but they are like perfect. And the way they move, and they really require you to be fully present in the moment. You need to keep eye contact. And when you keep eye contact with your favorite animal in the whole world, is such a powerful experience. And you see the mutual respect, and they were just like mind-blowing. They like, I couldn't stop staring at them. And I think it has been one of the best moments of my life. Like, they've been, just the way they move, and like they pretend that they are not coming in your way, but they are coming your way. So you have to always be looking. It was just spectacular. They were just amazing.
Awesome. Well, yeah, look forward to hearing so much more about your research. Thanks so much for joining us here today. So for everyone at home, if you have any questions for Veronica, please do comment them below in the videos. I'm sure I can find her at some point to answer those. Remember to like and share on all the posts across our social media channels, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's ExeterMarine. Search us and you can find all stuff about shark awareness and lots of our other videos as well. So thanks for tuning in again, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.